Coming to you from an entrenched barricade deep in the heart of central North Carolina. Masculine Journey After Hours. A time to go deeper and be more transparent on the topic covered on this week's broadcast. So sit back and join us on this adventure. The Masculine Journey After Hours starts here now.
Welcome to Masculine Journey After Hours, and I'm Danny, and Sam and half the other crowd is out. And if you listen to the first show, you know that. But we are continuing a topic that we were doing some last week, kind of a different angle on it this week. And Art, we're going to let you set that up and finish what you started, as they would do in older TV shows. Meanwhile, in our last episode, our hero was sharing about. So set it up for us and then kind of finish your thoughts from the first show, please.
Okay, to set it up, I will say that
the abridged version of it.
A small version. Okay, so I happened upon a store that had a knife sharpener sitting on the counter, and I swiped my knife through it about 3 times, and it came out quite a bit sharper than I'd been able to get it on my own. So the question I have is why what is a man's role? Can a man sharpen a knife? What is a man? So I had those kind of questions, and we kind of skirt around those and try to answer those all along. But more specifically, I wanted to just do a whole show on what is the definition of a man, and according to what we've been taught and learned, and what society says, and then of course. According to what the Bible says, and we're trying to answer that here tonight as best we can. And in the previous show, I was telling about the movie The Fury. It was the tank crew and the last days of World War II, and I was telling about my own father and his experience in World War II, and he went to sign up to be in the Army, and somehow in the process they discovered that he was a certified welder, and they told him, well, we need a welder. We need you as a welder more than we need you as a soldier, and they put him in the civil service. And I think the first part of the war he was building destroyers. That was his job. And in the latter part of the war, he went to Honolulu, and his job was to repair ships. And he actually worked on the North Carolina USS 55 when it took a torpedo. So that he was on that. He was one of many. It was a crew. They worked 24 hours a day. They kept working at it 24 hours a day with different people, but that was his role during the war, instead of being a foot soldier, which he, I guess, otherwise would have been if he hadn't been a welder. But the point I guess I'm trying to make is that a man is a man as long as he walks with God, and his role in life, his interest, what he does for adventure or for a living, it doesn't define whether he's a man or not, or how manly he is or not. It's how we follow God's word and take Him with us in whatever roles we take. But in the movie, back to the movie, I'm not sure if I quite finished that, but the gunner had been trained as a typist, worked as a typist, and somehow he became a machine gunner on this tank. And in their first encounter, he flubbed it up a bit. He didn't do well at all, and the commander, Brad Pitt, really had some harsh words for him and told him he had to do better, and he did. Throughout the movie, he got better and better, and he was actually became really good in this new role. He was a typist, but he became a warrior, and a good one at that. And it turned out he was on this tank. He was the only one that survived in the end. The typist who became a warrior gunner, who became the survivor in the movie. So So that's about all I have to say about that right now.
Well, good deal. Art, we were talking pre-show, we were thinking about those kind of things. And when you look at, I think Harold mentioned the first show, when you look at men in the Bible, and if you look at men around you, people we're all different. I mean, we're different as day and night. I can't imagine being a computer programmer. I do good to get mine to come on and do what I want it to do. And everything, but Harold talks about programming, and everything. I'm not chasing cows around a farm. I can tell you that now. I will chase one around a plate after somebody's, grilled it up. But, and I think, Jim's a cop and he's had 400 other occupations, but, we're
a lot
all,
of roles.
I think it's just in the mid 200s.
Well, we're in,
That's a lot of roles.
we're all different. And I think, and I think I mentioned, in Scripture, David, the story that came to mind was David, when David stepped out to fight Goliath. Saul told him, said, look, here, take my armor, take my sword. You're getting ready to fight this guy who's been a trained warrior from his youth. And David, put the armor on, but he gave it back to him. And what he said was, he says, I have not proved this armor. So in other words, I haven't been trained in this way to fight. But I got this rock and this rag, and I'm pretty doggone good with it. Now, David, we know when you read the story of David, he learned to fight with the sword and the shield. He learned to do that. But he didn't fight like the rest of them. And I think, if your dad had been one of those people putting those ships back together and building those ships, how are the guys who fight on ships going to fight? How are, everybody,
Exactly.
There's a guy on those ships that stays in the engine room all the time, keeping the engines running.
Yeah.
He don't never have to fight much or whatever, but by golly, he's important.
Mm.
When you show up on church on Sunday and you sit on a nice clean pew and you go to a nice clean bathroom, somebody clean that bathroom. And that was just as important as the pastor standing there preaching. You go, now, wait a minute, Danny. Well, you go in a dirty bathroom in church and you tell me how important it is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But what I'm saying is that there are no menial roles in the kingdom of God. God gives us each and every one something that we're good at, and something that may seem trivial to the next guy.
Yeah. On the show, we often come back to describing man as having an adventurous heart, and God gave us that adventurous heart, and we talk about adventures like hunting, fishing, traveling, being a warrior, or others. But there's it all depends on what your inclination is and your interests are. That you don't have to necessarily do any of those things to be an adventurous man of God, to have an adventurous heart, and to what you're doing is adventurous to you.
Yeah.
You don't have to join the hunt club or take up riding motorcycles or anything like that. We talk about those things, and if you're inclined to do it, that's all well and good. But that doesn't define. You don't have to do any of those things. You have to do what's important to you, and do it with God, and to be a man.
Well, I chose a clip. I dug it up out of the archives, so I didn't have to cut one, because I'm a little lazy sometimes. But we've cut tons of clips over the years, and there's stuff out there. But anyway, it's from Braveheart. In the spirit of Andy Thomas, who's not here, I'm going to use a Braveheart clip. Probably could have used a what is it, Outlaw Josie Wells, because I know there's a few of those out there. But I think we have the whole movie in clips of Josie Wells.
Turf there.
Yeah. I have to be careful, So, but anyway, it's from Braveheart, and it's a scene that where they're honoring William Wallace. But what you hear is a bunch of exchanges, and you hear some arguments and some shouting and that thing. But then you hear William's heart as to why he's in this fight. And it's very different from anything you've heard thus far. And it's a great clip, and I'm going to play it, and then I'll talk about it afterwards and tell you why I chose it. So,
Sir William Wallace. Sir William, in the name of God, we declare and appoint thee guardian and high protector of Scotland, and thy captains as aide-de-camp. Stand and be recognized.
Sir William, inasmuch as you and your captains hail from a region long known to support the Balliol clan, may we invite you to continue your support and uphold our rightful claim?
Damn the Balliol clan! They're all Longshanks!
Now is the time to declare a king.
Oh, wait! Then you're prepared to recognize our legitimate succession, are you?
You're the ones who won't support the rightful claim.
Those were lies when you first wrote them.
That's true. I demand recognition of these documents.
These documents are lies when you wrote them.
We have beaten the English, but they'll come back. Because you won't stand together.
Well, what will you do?
I will invade England and defeat the English on their own ground.
Invade? That's impossible.
Why? Why is that impossible? You're so concerned with squabbling for the scraps from Longshank's table that you've missed your God-given right to something better. There's a difference between us. You think the people of this country exist to provide you with position. I think your position exists to provide those people with freedom. And I go to make sure that they have it.
You can hear several different things in that clip. Number one, I think all that squabbling and all is a predecessor to our Senate and House of Representatives now. That's probably what it sounds like on any given day, I'm guessing. But we won't talk politics. So, you know, they're talking about different things, and they've defeated the English and that kind of thing. But you know, here you hear William Wallace's heart, a heart that God gave him, and he has a heart for. He's not doing any of this thing that if you've seen the movie Braveheart, you know, he wasn't going to fight. He was going to get married. He was going to be a farmer, and they drug him into this fight. And now he's in the fight, but he's in it not for himself, but for the freedom of Scotland. That's its whole premise, and it's a desire put on him from God that his people be free. It's almost a Moses-like character if you think about it. And, you know, but when your heart comes alive, and one of the things, and we've talked about a lot, maybe we can talk about it a little bit more, but that, you know, in this ministry, that, you know, going to boot camps, Jim, and trying to follow this thing, not that the book Wild at Heart's the gospel, but it pointed me toward the gospel and made the gospel make a whole lot more sense to me. And it made biblical manhood make more sense to me, Art, that, you know, Jesus was a man, and, you know, he had certain things. And if I want to be a man, I need to follow after God's own heart, like David did. And the closer I follow, the more I become manly. It may not be hunting. Now, I love hunting and fishing best like the next guy. I didn't grow up that way. I hated hunting as a kid because I didn't like being cold. I still don't like being cold. Ever since this last surgery, I'm cold all the time, so I don't know what I'm going to do when hunting season comes. I'm going to dress in all the clothes I have when I go out there, I guess. But those are the things that I thought would make me. I love sports. You know, my heroes were, you know, baseball players, the old Western guys. But in actuality, I knew I wasn't like any of those guys. I watched a Clint Eastwood movie one time, put on my cowboy boots and took my BB gun out the front door and shot myself in the foot. You know, became like Chester on Gunsmoke pretty quick. You know, that kind of thing. I thought, wait a minute. But the reality of it is that God had to unwind some things in my life. And, you know, he's given me talents and treasures that make me just as much a man as the next guy. And it took me hard, you know, and I was talking about it earlier, you know, I'm a sensitive guy. I cry at the Lion King, you know, the whole 9 yards. And, you know, and that bothered me for a long time. And I was a proclaimed mama's boy. I got called that a lot. I'm proud to say I am a mama's boy. She left, you know, almost 5 years ago. She's gone on to heaven. I'm still a mama's boy. But, you know, that's okay. Because, you know, there's a heart after God that, you know, we ain't gonna get it right, Harold. We gonna mess it up every now and then. I can mess it up like the next guy. But being God's man is more important to me than being a man's man. And I hope that's, you know, I heard a podcast this morning, I was going to throw this in, that, you know, the question was asked, are you familiar with Jesus or are you fascinated by him? And I decided this morning where I want to be fascinated by him because he's an eternal creature. And if I ever lose my fascination and just become familiar with him, then it just becomes just something I do. And that was kind of the point of the thing. But I want to be fascinated with Jesus. And, you know, this clip was just, you know, just hit me that way. You know, we are all striving to be, you know, what God wants us to be. But the world and even sometimes our churches have lied to us and what that really is. That's the reality of it, is that, you know, John Eldridge talks about it. You know, sometimes the message you get is to be a good Christian man is to be at church every Sunday and don't sin. That's it. If that's it, I wouldn't be there long, I'm telling you. Because number one, I goof up every now and then, and that just doesn't seem very adventurous to me. But, you know, but the fact of getting out and trying to disciple men and engaging in people's lives and meeting people that aren't like me and that kind of thing just makes your heart come alive. So we got a little bit more time. Anybody got a story of how God has straightened out some of the lies you've known about manhood?
One of the things you said about you're like most men, you're a hunter. You might be the only hunter at the table today. That's normally not the case, but I haven't actually heard you bragging about your hunting.
Oh no, I'm not a hunter.
So
I don't have anything against those who do. It's just not something I ever took up.
And I shot and this was sort of my story. When I had my first BB gun, and I hunted a cardinal to death, and I must have shot it 25, 30 times. And when I saw the dead cardinal and picked it up, I cried, and I never wanted to shoot anything else except an occasional human being, but I hadn't done that yet. But that just never appealed to me. And I'm like you, I don't care for the guys that want to go out just to mount a head on their wall. But if you're out there getting venison and you're not wasting the kill, that's
a deer is such a beautiful creature to me. I'd probably come closer to kissing it than shooting it.
Well, you know what I found? I started hunting 3 years ago. I hunted some as a kid, and like I said, I did not like to be cold or none of that stuff. But there was just something in me that you know, because some of the guys around here were hunting and that kind of thing, and out at Gaither's place, and I went out there with them, and I shot at my first deer, missed him by a mile, I'm pretty sure, because they failed to tell me don't look at the horns, and I'd heard people talk about buck fever. And when you look at a deer through the scope and you realize that what's getting ready to happen, your heart takes a rate that would alarm most cardiologists. I could feel my heart beating in my ears. And I'm like, how in the world do you, and I know in the excitement, when I pulled the trigger, I snatched the gun up, probably shot 20 feet over the deer. Deer run off. But what began to happen is, and it didn't happen until I started hunting the place I hunt now. Guys got a stand, and deer were coming out at Gaithers. You see them at 150, 200 yards out. That's one thing. But to have deer walk up on you 20 yards away from you and just meander around, and you're right, they are graceful, beautiful creatures. They are curious creatures. They are hilarious creatures. But they are smart creatures as well. And I become fascinated with just watching them sometimes. Now, there's a couple of them in my freezer. Don't get me wrong. Because, we use the meat and that kind of thing, because I was raised, if you're going to kill it, you're going to clean it and you're going to eat it. You don't waste stuff. Yeah, that's the way I was raised. And so therefore I didn't hunt a long time because,
And that's the way I was raised, and that was more from my mom. But the fighting instinct was in me. When I was a kid and my cousin and I were playing together, we were the Men from U.N.C.L.E., we were James Bond and Felix Leitner, I think. Anyway, and I always
Cowboys and Indians.
didn't play that one.
Oh, really?
But we were spies, and at one point we got a book on karate and beat the crap out of each other trying to learn how to fight. But I never wanted to fight. I was an extreme pacifist, and I think that was actually a gift from God. I'm not a dummy, even though I'm big and we're supposed to be dumb. I learned pretty quick that the big guy loses the fight either way. Either we're the big guy picking on the little guy, or we're the big guy that got beat by the little guy. So fighting was something I had to do through junior high school because that's what everybody did, but somebody had to pretty much hit me before I'd hit back. And I'm still that way. But the warrior is still there. But what God changed was what's worth fighting for. And that's my wife, my children, my cats. Don't be mean to my cats. We'll have a problem. I mean, I'm going to protect what God has put in my life to protect. But, and I still love a good war movie. And some of those are the most moving things. And yeah, I'm like you. I was bawling like a child the first time I saw the Saving Private Ryan before it even got into action. When he walked into that cemetery and asked, "Am I a good man?" I lost it. So, but the closer I get to God, the more I laugh and the more I cry. I've been saying that for decades now.
Yeah. I'm not really a hunter either. Even though I live on a big property and have a lot of wildlife around, I have some guns and I like to think about it, but I don't actually do it. I remember a couple of years ago, some of the guys were getting together to go on a dove hunt, and I thought, well, that would be kind of fun. I'd kind of like to go, and then I'm like, no, I believe I'd just soon stay at home with my dogs. And I tell you, anything I do involving my dogs, that's an adventure for me. That sure is. And so I didn't go. So I think I would like to, but the more fun adventure to me is just be around my dogs and my cows, my animals, and stay at home. So that's what I do. Yeah.
Well, I've been on a couple of those dove hunts.
Yeah.
That's why I like hunting deer. They're slower and they're bigger and they're easier to hit.
Well, and you know that one of my names from God is mourning dove. So
yeah,
I take that personally. But I'm an easy one to hit, and I'm slow. So.
Well, the last hunt we went on, I scared two dove pretty bad, but I didn't kill them. I'm pretty sure I scared them. I sped them up a little bit. Well, we got a little bit of time left, and there's been a great topic. I listened to the show last week. I wasn't here, had to work, and unfortunately, I still have to work. I've been trying to get out of that habit, But this is such a dangerous topic. It really is, because as we talked about the pre-show, and we'll kind of wrap it up with this, is that there are so many things out there that makes masculinity as a domineering thing over the female persuasion, or you got to be something that you're not. You got to be the Marlboro Man, you got to be the John Wayne, you got to be that. If you're not that, then you're not nothing. If you don't ride a motorcycle, if you don't do that thing. My wife told me I could have a motorcycle after many years of marriage. She said, but there's one condition. She said, not if, but when you kill yourself, you need to have enough life insurance that I can grieve in the lap of luxury. So I figured it was cheaper not to have the motorcycle. So, but it's those things that we process. Growing up, I was not good at sports. I love baseball. I've always loved baseball. My hero was Catfish Hunter, the pitcher for the New York Yankees. But I wasn't good at it. I was good at pitching Because Dad told the coach one time, he said he throws all the rocks out of my driveway hitting cans. He's pretty good, but I have to get gravel every now and then because he throws all the rocks at it. But I couldn't hit Harold for nothing. And one game, we had a perfect season going with our little league team. We hadn't won a game all year. And the last game of the season, we played the team that hadn't lost a game all season. And it was 2 outs, last inning, and it was my bat. And everybody goes, oh, it's Danny's bat. Hadn't had a hit all year. I don't even think I'd made contact with a ball all year. Usually struck out. And I swung the bat. Pretty sure I had my eyes closed. And I hear the crack of the bat. And when I open my eyes, I see the ball fall right behind the first baseman's head and just before the right fielder. Got a base hit. There was 2 guys on base. We won the game, and I got the game ball. and it was like, what in the world just happened? And I think, but it was one of those things where
Jesus take the bat.
Jesus take the bat, and I do believe that was God's grace and mercy. I do. I believe it was a gift because I was not skilled at that. That's why I took up golf, because nobody's throwing me the ball or throwing it at me, and nobody's trying to tackle me because I got it. But anyway, I hear the music playing. Got a boot camp coming up the weekend before Thanksgiving, the 19th through the 20-something. And you can go online and register at masculinejourney.org. You can listen to us on any podcast format. You can listen to the radio show and the podcast on anywhere you get podcasts, Spotify, iPod, anywhere. And you can look us up, and you can email any of us at our first name, like Danny at masculinejourney.org, or any of us. So we look forward to hearing from you. Talk to you next week.